All right, let's deal with this question right here. Not a question, but a statement from Kahanya. Kahanya says to our "Is Jesus black? Black generational matrices and curses." He says Jesus wasn't black, bros. It's gotten ridiculous with our people hijacking other people, history, and culture. Jesus was Middle Eastern. Middle Eastern people are not black. I am surprised this debate still goes on today with the fact genetics have debunked all that nonsense. The people of the Middle East have different genetics from the people of West Africa. Genetics don't like bros. Well, the first thing I want to say to you, and this is not a whole teaching or anything like that, but just some of the ridiculousness that you're saying in this comment here. Why did you say at the last, next to last, the people of the Middle East have different genetics from the people of West Africa? Isn't East Africa part of Africa too? In fact, the Middle East includes, notice something, the Middle East includes that hemisphere along the eastern portion of Africa. The Sudanese people have the blood of the Ishmaelites and of Muhammad. They're descended from the people of Muhammad. The Ethiopians, or many tribes of the Ethiopians, have Israelite and Hebrew blood to them. The Limba people are Hebrews. You understand? But let's talk about genetics. Can you say genetics don't like bros? No. The people running these genetic studies are giving you bunk and junk studies. These are just totally bunk and junk studies. Okay, here's how we're going to prove that this DNA evidence that alleges to purport that, well, the Ethiopians and black people are not Hebrews but Middle Eastern. Can you show me Middle Eastern, the terminology being used before the so-called modern times? It's all about the Berlin Conference, the recarving of the world map into different sections in order for them to run this globalistic kind of a chess game and everything. The Middle East includes Africa, includes the Horn of Africa, includes Sudan, includes even Egypt. The people who are in Egypt today are migrants and immigrants and children of the Ptolemies, the Greeks, and a little bit of black blood, but there's still a lot of black people who are in Egypt. They call the Nubians, and they're in the Aswan region, and many of them are black. But you know what? If you're Egyptian and you come to the West, the United States or Europe, they classify you as white. In other words, Egyptian nationality or ethnicity is classified officially as white, even if you have woolly hair and even if you have reddish brown or even blue black complexion on your ID. You understand? On your ID, you're classified as being white. But let's touch on this DNA evidence that a lot of people like to harp on. First of all, it's just totally ridiculous, this kind of Middle Eastern argument. Most of the people in the Middle East now actually come from the farther east. Further east, they actually come forward. If you study the Bible, all the invasions by the Assyrians and the other tribes were coming from the east. Even in the Bible and Tower of Babel, it wasn't the Ethiopian Nimrod that so-called built the Tower of Babel. This is another Jewish fable and everything. Even the Bible tells you they came from the east. Now we decided to just interrupt the regularly scheduled vlog just to add this little bit of update right here about the subject matter of the Middle East. Because a lot of people use this Middle East thing as an excuse not to look at the facts. Let's look at some of the evidence. Okay, this map right here. As you see this map, this is the map of the Middle Eastern region. The part that's encircled is the Middle Eastern region. Now, I've been looking for a map just like this to be able to better explain using the evidence, a visual evidence, and then taking the Bible, the Holy Scriptures, the sacred Scriptures, in the King James translation, which many of y'all should be able to understand, and look at this map right here. This is the Middle East. What's encircled is the Middle East. Now you see on the side it says Africa, right? And then over here it says Ethiopia. Ethiopia is in that Middle Eastern region. Now, of course, on a map of today, nowadays map, this country that's called Ethiopia is divided between Sudan, one part of Sudan, as well as what's known as Ethiopia, and even a part of Kenya, even reaching into the area known as Somalia. But now look at that line, which is called the Nile. I want you to pay attention to that, because here's what the Holy Scriptures, Orit Zefitret, says. Here's what the Orit, the Torah of the creation, says. To Abraham, to our ancestor, in chapter 15, verse 13, and he said to Abram, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. Right? Now this is the prophecy speaking of us as a lost sheep of the house of Israel. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterward shall they come out with great substance. Now we're going to identify this particular map, the area of land. I want to give you some background to this. Let's go to verse 18, where it says, in the same day Yahweh, Yod-He, Waw-He, made a covenant with Abram, saying, to thy seed, which means to thy race, have I given this land, from the river of Egypt to the river, to the great river, the river Euphrates. Now, this is why I like this map right here. The river of Egypt, you can clearly see this river of Egypt, you understand, going down from Egypt into the part of the map named Ethiopia. And it points to at the different portions of it being the Nile, the Hapeh, the Nile. Now, in some areas of the Bible, say the river of Egypt, and then it says beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. Now, you can see if you go beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, which is the same river as the Nile, you then begin to go into Central Africa, and you begin to go further into West Africa. Why am I pointing to this? Because you can see this is the area of land that Yahweh said to Abram that he will give to his seed. Now, if you recall that Abram had Ishmael, which are the progenitor of the Arab and you can say the Islamic, Mohammedan peoples of today, they connect with that Ishmael lineage. Then you have Yitzhak. From Yitzhak was not a Jew. You just have to put that out there. Yitzhak, Isaac was not a Jew, and Abraham was not a Jew. It's counterintuitive to believe that Abraham was a Jew or that Yitzhak was a Jew. You know what I'm saying? They were Hebrews, but they were not Jews. Jews come from Judah. In other words, the tribe of Judah properly, according to the facts, the evidence. But this map is so important here because you can see the river Euphrates on one end, and then you can see the Nile River. This is the area, the fullness of the area. That portion up there where it says Jerusalem and Hebron and right above Sinai, that is the only part of that promised land that the tribes of Israel were able to conquer. Because of disobedience, this is the only area that they were able to conquer and to even inhabit for a while. Now this basically left this whole promised land area, especially Arabia, open to the immigrants, migrants, tribes, and others who came to that area because of the richness of that soil and because of the gold, which Bible and even evidence tells you even from today is in that Africa region. Do we have any? Okay, we still got a couple of more minutes in this. I want to show you one more map as well. All right, let's go to the next map. Now, remember the last map that you just seen right there. Now look at this map right here. I love this map right here. Even though it's kind of pixelated, it's not as clear as we would like it. But if you have a better map like this, then just share it, pass it on. But what's interesting about this map right here is you can see various different migrations. Now you see that line. Do you know anything about Africa? You know what part of Africa? It doesn't have the countries right there, but you can see from that same 1040 or that same promised land region, you can see how some tribes went further south. You see how there's some lines going straight down to the south, right? These lines, and they're coming out of where ancient Egypt was. All right. Now, and it points to Judah. You see how Judah goes across North Africa. Many of them were sold, you understand, into the Arab slave trade and other slave